In today's training, we are going to review the safety requirements for mechanical power presses, regulated by OSHA under Title 29 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 1910.217. Mechanical power presses have been around since 1857. It is estimated that over 350,000 are in operation in the United States. There are two main types of mechanical power presses, full revolution and partial revolution. With a full revolution press, the press makes a complete cycle. There is no way to stop it once the cycle has been initiated. Partial revolution presses can stop mid-cycle. These presses have an air line going to the clutch that activates the braking mechanism. With a full revolution clutch, a single stroke mechanism is used. You will find on these presses a spring that compresses on a rod or guide within a hole or tube. These springs are designed to prevent the spring from interleaving or springing all over the place in the event the spring breaks. Partial revolution presses have an air line that runs to the clutch. The air pressure engages and can release the clutch at any point of the press cycle. In this photo of press 195, you can see the air line going to the clutch. This is a feature you will observe in all partial revolution presses. Mechanical power presses have three basic modes of operation: inch mode, single stroke mode, and continuous mode. Our presses operate primarily in continuous mode. Inch mode is used for die setting of the press and for certain maintenance functions. Inch mode cannot be used for production. To inch the press requires both hands to be used on the two-hand controls. Presses that operate in single stroke mode most commonly use safeguarding devices instead of full guarding of the presses. With continuous mode, barrier guards are used to keep employees safe from the point of operation. We talk more about safeguarding devices later in the training. It should be noted that only trained press operators and trained tool makers are authorized to change modes of operation. Anyone else is prohibited from using the key to change modes of operation. Modes of operation can be found on the control panel. This picture from press 201, a partial revolution press that can operate in inch, single stroke, or continuous modes. The selector switch must be used in order to change the mode of operation. There are two ways to initiate a press: through the use of a foot pedal or through two-hand controls. All our presses have two-hand controls. With two-hand controls, both hands must be used to initiate the press. The palm buttons must also be guarded against unintentional operation. In this photo, the controls have ring guards around them to prevent them from being accidentally pushed. Both buttons must be pushed to engage the press. The pedestal controls are only for inch mode. To run production in single stroke mode when hand feeding, the two-hand controls on the control panel must be used. In facings, only press 195 has a brake monitor. Typically, brake monitors are used when the press doors or the gates can be opened and the operator places their hands into the point of operation. Gates such as Type A and Type B gates open automatically at different points of the press cycle. We do not use any gates or have any presses and facings where you must put your hands into the point of operation while running production. There are a number of electrical requirements for mechanical power presses. For instance, in the event of a power failure, there must be a control circuit feature that prevents the press from operating when the power resumes. The presses are designed so that in the event of a power failure, you must restart the press when the power resumes. Mechanical power presses must have a way to disconnect the control circuit to allow you to safely lock out the equipment when needed. The disconnect must be capable of being locked out only in the off position, and the motor start button must be designed to prevent accidental operation. In the upper photo, please observe the disconnect switch on the panel. When it is put into the off position, it will be capable of accepting a lock. In the lower photo, the start button has a ring guard around it to prevent it from being accidentally pushed. In addition to the mechanical power press requirements, we also must meet the machine guarding requirements of OSHA. There are four basic types of guards: fixed barrier guards, adjustable guards, self-adjusting guards, and interlock barrier guards. The presses and facings use a combination of fixed barrier guards and interlocked guards. Other safeguarding features called point of operation devices can also be used. For the presses and facings, we use two-hand controls. We do not use pullback, restraints, or type A or B gates in our facility. You will observe that presence sensing devices such as light curtains are used on a lot of the equipment in our facility, but not on the mechanical power presses and facings since the presses have fixed and interlocked barrier guards. Our fixed barrier guards and interlock barrier guards have to meet OSHA requirements in preventing entry of hands and fingers into the point of operation by reaching through, over, under, and around guards. The opening of the guards must meet OSHA Table O-10. We also have to make sure we do not have any pinch points between the guards and the moving machine parts. Our fixed barrier guards must be secured by fasteners that cannot be easily removed without a tool, unless the guard is interlocked. The guards need to offer maximum visibility, which is why we use mesh or clear guards. The upper guard in this photo is a fixed barrier guard. Anytime you remove a fixed barrier guard, the equipment must be locked out. A lot of our hinge guards have electrical interlocks. When the door is opened, the press will stop mid-cycle. The interlock is tied into the press clutch control. Remember, anytime that you place your hands into the point of operation to conduct maintenance or servicing, the equipment must be locked out, or an alternative safety measure must be used, such as a safety block. Table O-10 dictates how wide an opening can be based on the distance from the point of operation. For instance, if the opening under a guard is half of an inch, the guard must be at least 2.5 inches from the point of operation. When looking at our presses, you will not find any openings that exceed 1/4 of an inch. Our presses are very well guarded. The OSHA regulations require that tooling be guarded to keep your hands away from any moving parts. Dies will either be stamped with the tonnage and stroke requirements, or this information needs to be readily available to the job setter. Dies must be securely mounted to the bolster plate and slide. When handling dies, there must be attachment points if mechanical handling, such as a hoist, is required. For dies that require them, spring-loaded turnover bars must be provided. We do not have any dies that require these bars. If needed, die stops must be used to prevent losing control of the dies when setting or removing them. Safety blocks must be provided and used. Brushes, air nozzles, and other tools are provided to keep your hands out of the point of operation. Remember, a safety block must be used and inserted when the dies are being adjusted and repaired in the press. Safety blocks are provided for each one of our presses. The safety blocks are interlocked with the control system. When the plug is pulled out, the power to the main motor drive is disconnected. The block is then placed into the press to allow safe work during die adjustments or repairs. Regulations require that presses are inspected weekly and annually. The weekly inspections are performed by each department and will be detailed in the following slides. Annual inspections are conducted by an outside press company and are much more involved than the weekly checks. Each department that uses mechanical power presses are required to perform weekly press inspections. It does not matter which shift conducts the inspection. If the press is not running for a week, it is considered out of service and the inspection is not required. Do not operate the press if any deficiencies are found during the inspection. Write a description in the Description of Unsatisfactory Condition section and report any deficiency to your supervisor. We must maintain and keep the two most current records of inspections. When conducting an inspection, look for the push buttons for any damage. Make sure the run buttons are properly guarded from accidental activation, and make sure the guarding itself is not damaged. The mode selector switch must respond properly in all modes. The inch position must run the press in inch mode, single for single mode, and continuous for continuous mode. To test the anti-repeat mode, place the press into single stroke mode and activate both controls at the same time and maintain through the cycle. The press should not cycle for a second time until both hands are completely removed from the controls and the controls are activated again. To test the anti-tie down function, the press must be placed in single stroke mode. Activate the controls through a cycle and release one of the controls. Then activate the control that was released. If the press cycles again, then is not anti-tie down. Repeat the same process for the second control. The control should not be able to be activated for a second cycle unless both controls have been released. Guarding must be securely in place to protect operators from the point of operation and any moving parts. To test the clutch solenoid valve is operating properly, activate the press in single stroke mode. If the press immediately begins to cycle, the clutch solenoid is operating properly. If the press takes a noticeable amount of time to activate, the clutch solenoid is not operating properly. To check the brake solenoid, activate the press in single stroke mode. Pull your hands from the palm buttons. The press should immediately stop. If not, do not operate the press and report this to your supervisor. Record the stop time on the brake monitor. This reading will be in milliseconds, and only our stamping presses have brake monitors. Descriptions of any deficiencies and the corrective actions taken should be entered in the sections above. The stop time on press 195 is located on the control panel depicted in this picture. The annual inspection looks at various mechanical and electrical components. A thorough report is provided on any deficiencies and repairs that were made as part of the inspection. As part of your on-the-job training, work instructions are reviewed with you annually, including the SC86 instructions on how to lock out each press. Only authorized employees may lock out equipment. Authorized employees will have received classroom training on lockout-tagout and will have been observed locking out a piece of equipment. It is also important that your work area is not congested so that you have room to move as needed between machines. Make sure your work area is kept clean and that the floors are in good condition. There is an SC86 for each piece of equipment. Make sure you review the SC86 for any equipment you operate. Classroom lockout-tagout training is required if you are to lock out any equipment. Before shutting down the presses, make sure you first log off at the main press control screen. The presses should be operated within the manufacturer's specifications. Another requirement unique to the mechanical power press regulations is that any injury that occurs within the point of operation must be reported to OSHA within 30 days. As required by our standard operating procedure, SOP-80, injuries are to be immediately reported to your supervisor and a Form SH1 filled out. This is the end of the presentation portion of the mechanical power press training. Please review the key points shown on the screen. To complete the training, a score of 80 or higher must be obtained on the mechanical power press training quiz. Thank you and have a great day.